and I will admit all. Thank you so much for joining. We're still admitting a few more people, so if we can wait a couple of minutes. Okay, I think that's everyone. Thank you so much for joining today for this careers event that LIDC is putting on in partnership with Queen Mary, University of London. I'm really happy to see so many people here. We have 120 people, so that's really, really great. And I think that's primarily because we have such a great lineup of speakers. Just a few sort of housekeeping things first. We are recording this event, so we will publish it on our website later. So that people who were unable to attend can watch it afterwards. If I can ask you to keep your microphones muted, at least during the presentations. And then when we come to the Q&A, you can raise your hands using the raise hand button, and then we will ask you to unmute yourself to ask your question. But if you prefer, you can also just send pop your question in the chat, and then we'll direct it to the speakers that you wanted to ask a question to. So I'm here also today with my colleague Shireen. So Shireen has a mini poll to just kickstart this event. So maybe you can share the question. So you should have on your screen now just a question about your interest. There are a few more people joining, so I'll just admit them all. All right, Shireen, how's it looking with the poll?
Yeah, we've got a fair spattering of answers. Majority of people have already voted, 92%, so we're just waiting for a few more.
All right, so let's give it 30 more seconds, and then Shireen will share the results so we see what people are most interested in.
Okay, if you haven't voted, you have less than a minute to decide which area you're interested in. I think we can always presume that those who aren't voting are interested in everything. Wonderful. I've got 123 out of 127 votes now, 97%.
So I think you can share the results.
Oh, going for 100. We just hold on for a few more seconds. We're at 99. This is exciting. So we'll just accept that we've got an exception that proves the rule, and I'm just about to end the polling now. Oh, made it to 100%. Sharing the results now. So you should all be able to view the poll results. Education. So would you like me, again, I'm not sure if you can see the poll from where you are.
Actually, I can't, but I think we're logged into the same account because we're in the same.
Right. So would you like me to read out what we have as the results? I think everyone can see it. We've mostly gone for education at 28%, followed by poverty and inequality at 25, and then climate, both climate and health at 8. Food at 6%, migration at 5. But a lot of those areas, as we know, overlap. So yeah, interested to see that education comes out on top.
Okay, yeah, perfect. I guess, yeah.
I'll take it down now.
Okay, thank you, Shireen. Thank you so much for that. We still have a few latecomers, so I'll just admit a few more. But I wanted to introduce our first speaker, Mariam Inam, who's joining us from UNDP in Islamabad. And I'm very happy to hear that climate change came high up on the list, because that's one of the topics that Mariam works on. So Mariam, would you like to introduce yourself and talk a little bit about your path to where you are today?
Thank you so much for having me, and I'm honored to be sharing this with such amazing speakers. So before I get into my career trajectory, just a bit of background about myself. I'm from Pakistan, and I'm settled here in the capital city of Islamabad. So majority of my education has been from here up until undergrad. I did my bachelor's in economics, and in my junior year, I decided to look into more options of studying abroad, and I knew I wasn't going to pursue economics for sure. So by this time, I had done a few elective courses, and I knew I was much more interested in the development sector. I did a few more internships and decided to look into international development courses. So I was looking into programs worldwide, and eventually decided that I wanted to pursue my master's in the UK, primarily because the program rankings generally for international development programs in UK were quite high, and also because the courses that I was looking into were for a year compared to 2-year courses in the US or Australia. So it was kind of a tempting offer to actually go for a 1-year master's program. Eventually, I applied to a lot of universities in the UK and decided to do my master's in environment and development from London School of Economics. This is actually where I met Joe, who will be speaking later today as well. And he's the one who recommended me for this event. So this is a bit of the educational background. So once I completed my master's, I came back to Pakistan in 2015. At this point, I only had internship experiences. I didn't have full-time job experience. I'm not sure about the rest of the world, but in Pakistan, it's kind of contradicting because finding an entry-level job with almost no experience is very difficult. Somehow they have this requirement of having 2 years work experience, which doesn't make sense, but yeah, so I kind of struggled to find a job initially when I came back. So I started working as an intern for one of Pakistan's largest NGO networks called National Rural Support Program. And within 2 months, I got a full-time job offer from there, and I was working as a program officer for their monitoring and evaluation department. I worked there for about 8-9 months, and then I got an opportunity for a 1-year fellowship with the Ministry of Planning, Development and Reform, Government of Pakistan. So this was a great opportunity to work in the public sector, actually. So I took that offer. I was a shared resource between 2 departments, food security, climate change, and another one being development communications. I think it's one of the most valuable experiences I have to date. I got to work at the policy level. I got to know what the government priorities are, how the government works. And to date, when we work with the government counterparts, I know what they're looking for, and it helps me align the work much more with their priorities. So it was one of the best experiences I had. So the fellowship ended. I was again unemployed for a few months, started job search all over again. And then I ended up having a position, an offer from Concern Worldwide, which is an Irish humanitarian organization. I started as the communications and reporting assistant for one of their projects, which was based on rehabilitation of internally displaced people within Pakistan. The project, again, it was a great learning opportunity, not exactly aligned with climate change and environment, but again, within the development sector. I worked there for a while, and the project was coming to an end. And at the same time, I got an opportunity to work for WWF Pakistan as Senior Officer, Program Development and Communications. So this first opportunity that was fully aligned, besides Ministry of planning, development, reform, where I was actually able to execute the learnings of my master's program. So again, I was working with two of the departments, program development and communications. I got to learn a lot this job. I developed technical skills. I got to learn from international teams. I worked in the field. It was a great opportunity. And I worked here for a year and a half. And then I got an opportunity to work with UNDP Pakistan in their youth empowerment program as reporting and communications officer. Besides looking at donor reporting and visibility of the projects, I also lead a component of youth and climate action. And almost been a year and a half, and I'm still here. So I kind of realized I've made a lot of switches over the years, but I'm glad. I learned a lot from different colleagues, from different sort of working environments, from challenging working environments. And it has helped me grow professionally over the years. So things that I wish I knew when I was doing my master's, honestly, I think if I had a chance to redo it, I would probably take a gap from before pursuing my master's. I'd ideally like to work in the field that I think I want to work in for a few years, because I believe that kind of helps you understand the career path you want to take. It helps you identify the areas that you need to work on or the skills that you need to develop. And it kind of gives you a better understanding of the sector. Unless you actually start working, you kind of don't fully know what you're getting into. And I think if you have that sort of experience, it can help you tailor the master's program better according to your career ambitions. What kind of knowledge you want to gain, what kind of skills you want to develop. Do you want to have more statistical courses, or what kind of topics you want to write on? So you can potentially make a lot more out of your master's program if you have worked before. So it kind of helps you know what you want and what you kind of don't want. And I understand, like, the audience today, we have students and alumni, and honestly, if I have to give you any tips, it would be that it's okay if you don't have it all figured out. I certainly did not when I was at your stage. Just try different courses, put yourself out there, try out different opportunities, volunteer, and see along the way what works for you and what doesn't. And if it doesn't, then it's never too late to switch. You can switch a course, you can switch whatever you want to whenever you want to. So just don't get stuck. And also, this is the great opportunity to make friends and connections. When I was in UK, I got the opportunity to meet a lot of people from all over the world. Like I said, Joe is the one who actually introduced me. So just make a lot of friends, make connections at this stage, and use social media. I think it has also helped me personally use Twitter and LinkedIn and post about what you're interested in. Besides my work, I also write a lot on the environmental issues, and I've been able to connect with a lot of people in the area through that. So use social media for your work and have fun. And I'll be more than happy to answer your questions.
So much, Mariam. That's really interesting to hear. Especially this thing that you described, I think it's like titled catch-22, that pretty much every recent graduate goes through. It's like you need experience to get experience, which is quite frustrating. But I think you offered some excellent advice, so I'm glad it's helpful for the people who attend today. And I'm sure they'll have quite a few questions for you at the end. I would like to now ask Anna Mary to speak. She's the communications manager at one of LIDC's NGOs members group. Over to you, Anna.
Hi, thank you very much, Gun. I've just noticed that the sound is a bit off. I wonder if it's just my side or everyone. Can everybody hear okay?
Hi, it actually is unique to that particular location. So we know what to do about it, and I'm sure Gun's doing it as we speak. Apologies for the disruption. Your sound is fine, Anna. Please continue.
Oh, okay, brilliant. I'm glad to hear it. So hi everyone. Thank you for having me here. I'm really delighted to be back at LIDC. So I'm Anna Mary. I work as Global Communications Manager at Brook, which is an international animal health and welfare organization with a presence in about 11 countries in the global south. I've been in the role for about 2 years. I was raised in Poland and moved to the UK in 2008. And I'm also a French citizen. So I thought what I would do today is tell you my story. And as I go along, I thought about some tips that I would like to pass on to you. And I'm very happy to answer any questions you may have. I studied psychology and literature back in Poland. We didn't have development studies back then. I knew I was interested in global affairs, but I didn't want to study international relations or political science. And during my undergraduate studies, I got a scholarship to an international college in Denmark, where I learned more about development. And one of the professors recommended that I participate in a World Bank essay competition. So I did. I wrote an essay about how European civil society could contribute to poverty reduction in the global south. And to my surprise, I was invited to the finals in Brussels, Belgium. So I went, presented my ideas alongside 7 other finalists, who were all male and all economists, students at top-level institutions in Europe. And to my astonishment, I actually won. And I think it's because I didn't present economic models. I had no clue about that. I wrote about what I knew, which is grassroots level bottom-up initiatives. And the prize was a paid internship at the World Bank Paris office in external affairs. And it was important that it was paid, otherwise I wouldn't have been able to do an unpaid internship in an expensive city. So here comes my first tip. Say yes to opportunities, however unlikely. Did I know I was going to win that competition? Not in a million years, but I did apply. I did have a go and it paid off. So then my internship ended and I went back home thinking I'd be unemployed, but I was quickly contacted by my former team at the World Bank. Someone was leaving and they offered me a job of organizing an international conference of for parliamentarians. And it so happened that I stayed for another 5 years. I got promoted and I ended up leading the global policy dialogue with academic institutions, researchers and students. So here comes the second tip. Get your foot in the door first and then worry. Amazing opportunities can come after, such as this internship of mine turning into a more permanent opportunity simply because people remembered me. Then, thanks to my earnings from the World Bank, I could afford to do a master's degree in development and communications at the London School of Economics. And after my year in London, with my experience at the World Bank and a master's from the LSE, I was ready to conquer the world. I wanted to move to an international NGO, so I started applying. You know what? I sent 70 applications and I got nothing. And to this day, I'm asking myself why. Maybe because I didn't have UK experience, maybe because people were intimidated by the World Bank, maybe because my name sounded too foreign, or maybe simply because it was the year 2009, so the middle of the financial crisis, or perhaps that I didn't know how to sell myself well in a UK context. So my tip is, don't be discouraged by rejections. You are going to get rejections. It's inevitable. It's an insanely competitive field that you're trying to work in. And we are facing the toughest job market in several years. But honestly, everybody I know, some people struggled, everybody got a job in the end, and you are going to get there too. So you may ask why I wanted to leave the World Bank in the first place. Don't we all want to work for a UN agency? Well, so the tough truth about some UN jobs is that you don't necessarily get a staff contract. So I was a consultant for many years. I was paid a daily rate, which was not a very high one. I didn't have medical insurance, didn't have paid holidays. I was working 3 days a week and could barely pay rent in London. And I also felt I was getting slightly stuck and starting to think too much like the line of the World Bank. So I thought it's time to leave. And I did manage to get there in the end. I got a communications officer position at a UK-based charity, but I really missed working with researchers and academics. And that's how an LIDC job came along. In 2011, I got the job that Gun has now. And I absolutely loved working with LIDC students and Bloomsbury College's researchers. But what was missing is travel opportunities overseas. So after 4 years with LIDC, I applied for a position with Imana, also at the London School of Hygiene. It was research uptake, and it's roughly the position that Joe has now, as he's going to tell you about. So my tip for you is find your niche. For me, the niche is research and technical communications. For you, it may be, maybe you're good with numbers, maybe you're a good writer. Find something you're good at and invest in it. And my experience is that if whatever has to do with numbers, financial analysis, statistics is really sought after. So I spent 8 years at the London School of Hygiene and I loved it, but I really wanted to see how things are done on the ground. And again, I wanted to work for an NGO. And my experience in academia helped me get a job that I have now at Brook about 2 years ago. They were looking for someone who can do technical and research communications with professional audiences, including researchers and development professionals. And I was the perfect match. I didn't have a particular interest in animal welfare back then, but because of LIDC's collaboration with Royal Vet College, I knew how important animal health is for human development. And at Brook, I learned how in low and middle income countries, working livestock such as horses or donkeys are really essential to livelihoods and food security of the poorest. And I must say, I love my job. So the final tip for you is, don't be afraid to explore different sectors. Don't be afraid to start off outside development where you can hone your transferable skills and then make a move later. If Gun allows me, I will do a little plug for an opportunity that we have at Brook at the moment. We're looking for a temporary communications officer to work with me on some analytical and impact evaluation stuff. So if you're interested, you have time to apply till tomorrow evening. So this is me, quite a diverse and eclectic career, not planned to be this way, but I find it very interesting and look forward to what comes next. And I do have one slide with just the top tips that I've mentioned. So I could share it with you now while the next speaker gets ready. Or Gun, shall I just send it to you later?
Hi, thank you. Can you hear me now? Is it better? It's better. Okay, cool. It happens sometimes with my computer. Great, thank you so much, Shanna, for that. It's really interesting to hear, and also great to bring up the opportunity at Brook. Yeah, just post a job ad in the chat. I'm sure you'll have.
Will do.
That's really great. And this is one of the things that you will find, that sometimes something shows up and it's last minute, and because you're able to step in on short notice, that's why you get these opportunities. So I encourage everyone who's qualified to apply for this great opportunity with Anya and her team. Next on our list, we have Joe, who works at London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine, and is with LC. No, are you with LC? Sorry. Sort of.
Yes and no.
Yes and no. Okay, sorry, sorry about that. So Joe will talk a little bit about how he managed to get to where he is today and share some tips with you.
Thanks, Gun. I've got some slides just because I'm very forgetful at changing, so I'd like to keep on. I don't know if you can see my screen now. Yeah. My mic's also a bit funny, so if I cut out, just let me know. So yeah, thanks for having me. It's a really, it's a pleasure to be here. I've attended loads of these kind of events over the year and learned a lot, so I'm happy to, hopefully contribute something back in the other direction if you think it's valuable. I'm not sure, but I just thought I'd tell you a little bit about my role now and then how I got to it, because I think there's definitely going to be some similarities with other people, but also I came into my job in a bit of a kind of unconventional way as well. So I kind of sort of ended up in it. So I thought it might be useful to share a kind of different pathway into the world of this kind of work. My current role is a kind of mixture of research, communications and partnerships, and also project management, which is a bit of a dream for me, because I'm not a specialist in any one of those things. So I can manage to keep my fingers in lots of pies and learn from other people along the way. This is what I primarily do most of my time. I look after something called the Agriculture, Nutrition and Health Academy, which is what you've just heard about from Anna Mary, which was a part of a bigger program called the MANA, which is all about food systems and agriculture and how we can measure the links between those and nutrition and health outcomes. The Academy is like a broader activity, and it's got these kind of 6 sub initiatives involved. But essentially, it's all about bringing people together around the world to collaborate around research, around sharing evidence, around pushing, moving the needle on some of the big challenges that are affecting nutrition and health, particularly as they relate to changes in agriculture and food systems. And alongside this, I've also carved out, very fortunately, a little bit of a research niche for myself as well, which is all about how plastics are used in the food system and what effects they might be having on people's well-being and health. And this is just to give you an example, this is the framework we put together. And so I feel very fortunate that I'm able to do both research and kind of project management and comms. But it's not been a kind of, it's not by design that I got into this, by no means. I had quite a random journey, and I thought this is the first time I've ever actually put it down on paper. Some of it's in my CV, but some of it's just in my head, really. I don't want to bore you, so I'll run through this quickly. But going back to when I was, 16-year-old, I started working in a flower shop and pushing trolleys around a supermarket. And when I was 18, I left college. I couldn't stand. I was just really not into education at that stage, and I left with not great grades. And I got like an admin job at a advertising company. I was also a DJ. I collect records and music, so I was able to sort of carve out a bit of income on that, and also, put in pub nights on. And in 2005, I had the opportunity to go to Malawi, of all places, and DJ at a festival there that I knew that someone was running, and that really kind of broadened my horizons and made me think about, the global context much more. I've always been interested in geopolitics and things like that, but to meet people, in a completely different context, really opened my eyes. Shortly after that, I got a job in another music shop and a record label, and I was a sandwich boy at one of these massive call centers for a bank. So I was selling sandwiches at lunchtime. So this is just to give you an idea. This was like 12 years ago. I was really nowhere near international development at all. I didn't have an undergraduate degree. I wasn't a particularly attractive prospect for any employer. But I got a job in a newspaper and in Liverpool. I lived at the time, called the Liverpool Echo, and I started doing. I got it was an admin job, and I started learning about systems and administration and budgets and things like that. And I think what Anna's just mentioned is really relevant. I think it's like, I think if you can get a foundation of admin skills and budgeting and things like that, and learning how to sort of, you know, proofread documents. That's really useful, transferable skills in any industry. I was convinced by my family to do a degree when I was 22. So I started doing a open university history degree, which is one of the original distance learning universities. So I spent 5 years doing that. So I was working full time and I was studying part time for 5 years. And during that time, I got a job. My first job, really, I guess you could say, is related to international development. And that was at the Liverpool School of Tropical Medicine, where I worked on a global maternal health program, emergency obstetric and newborn care. So my job was purely admin and logistics. I was responsible for organising courses, training courses with nurses and midwives all over the world, in 12 countries. And one of my biggest tasks was to work on logistics, like shipping prosthetic body parts all over the world and making sure they could get through customs and land in the right places. And that's, as you can imagine, was quite an interesting job at times. But I managed to travel the world doing that, and I met some incredible people, and that's what sort of really further galvanized my desire to work in a global context. In 2013, when I was I don't know how old I was then, I guess I was 27, I completed my undergraduate, and so that took 5 years, and that was in part-time, as I say, you know, with work full-time. And I started working at the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine. And again, this was a kind of primarily an administrative job as a project coordinator on a big HIV program. And that contract was only a 7-month contract, so I took a risk to move back down to London and do that. And at the same time, I decided, you know, a couple of years into that job, I should really build on my undergraduate and try and get some more skills and experience in sort of closer to a field that I want to do. So that I took on the Masters at the London School of Economics, where I met Mariam, in Environment and Development. And that was a full-time Masters, and I did my work part-time alongside it, which was hardcore, I have to say. But fortunately I completed that, and that really opened the door for me. And that's when I was able to get more, because I studied a lot of agriculture and climate change, and I was able to get into a job which is much closer to this. And that's like the one that Anna Marie had just mentioned. That was a research fellow in knowledge uptake. And I was fortunate enough to cover Anna's maternity cover. And then the project grew, it started growing massively, and it became unwieldy. So I was able to stay on, which was a huge bit of fortune. And then ultimately we won further funding. We had a successful grant application, and then I was able to take on my current job, which is the co-director of this Agriculture, Nutrition and Health Academy. So that's the kind of my path. And I don't want to say it's totally conventional, but I think a lot of people undervalue what admin is and how important it is to any job, let alone international development jobs. And so these are my little bits of advice. I'm not sure that, you know, they may or may not be useful to you. They, you know, the things I've sort of pondered along the way. First thing that I'd say is I often wonder what international development actually is in the modern context. You know, to me, it feels a bit like a dated concept. I think I don't consider myself as working in international development. I feel like I work in international collaboration around a series of global challenges. And in this, you know, one of the ones that I mainly focus on is malnutrition. And I think all of us, you know, work in some degree, work on global challenges. You know, climate change is something we all share. My second point is about admin. I think you can do, you know, I came in through the admin route, and I think it's really important. There's loads of amazing project managers that I know, and any job, even if you're a researcher, requires a strong project management skill set. So I think there's always fewer applications than you think for admin jobs as well. So you stand quite a good chance of getting into an organisation through the admin route. One thing for me I've realised is probably quite good for different employers is to find a thread to weave through your CV, even if you don't feel like your CV's got like a real niche to it. You can always find something. You know, for me, it was always, you know, project management and communications and things like that. I've volunteered quite a lot along the way on various different projects, if you've got the time or if you feel as if you've got the capacity. Also, I've tried to look ahead and get training where possible. and to adapt, to correct my course if I'm beginning to go, a bit wayward. And probably the biggest two things I'd say, one is work hard and play hard. I think most of or at least half of the sort of relationships I've formed, professional relationships, and the sort of things that have propelled me forward have taken place, in a pub or a coffee break, a conference or something. And I think, don't underestimate making friends, like Mariam said, and the support that and guidance and that can play in your life is really important. And finally, I have to reflect on the fact, when I look back on my life so far, that there's been a huge amount of luck as well, which of course is largely out of your hands, and definitely being a white man is a huge privilege in this world. I think everyone would admit. And so, at least for people like me, I think it's good to reflect on that and to sort of bear that in mind as you work in this field and try to open doors or to help other people who don't have quite so much luck as that. So that's all from me, and I'll be really happy to answer any questions, or my email address is on here as well, so in case that's of interest. Cheers.
Oh, wow. Thanks for sharing. That's quite a journey. It's interesting to see how you sort of made the most out of the skills that you got in jobs that were not, at least on the surface, not relevant for where you are today. But I think he comes with some very brilliant advice. It's to not underestimate admin. And it's, if you get sort of admin skills and you prove yourself to be well organized and also get skills in sort of finance, communications, etc., then these are big assets for other jobs as well. Our next speaker is joining us from Mozambique. Her name is Giovanna, and she works for another of our member NGO, Doctors with Africa, QUM. And Giovanna will talk a little bit about her journey to where she is today as country manager. And I think she studied at our member college, SOAS. So I'm sure there are plenty of SOAS students here today who'll be very interested to hear what Giovanna has to say. So over to you, Giovanna.
Hi, thank you very much. So my name is Giovanna. I'm 29 years old and I come from a tiny little village next to Venice in Italy. Let's say that my path is like not that directed towards development since the early beginning. So I've started studying translation and interpreting, and I ended up for 6 months in Argentina, where I actually started to understand that there was the possibility of joining the international development, because I had the chance of having a very good professor who told me that you can actually gain money out of working and joining an international organization. Because at the beginning I thought it was just volunteer. I didn't have any idea that this was a job actually, because I was not exposed to this in my village, in my small city. So for this reason, I started to understand what development means, and from a, let's say, also a political perspective. Therefore, she was suggesting me to actually joining a master degree. So after I finished my bachelor in translation and interpreting, I took 1 year off actually, and I tried, as Anna was saying, to send my CV to ask for some internship. But at the beginning I was pretty much refused, let's say. Obviously I didn't have that much experience, but then I had the luck of joining QUM, Doctors with Africa, the organization I'm working with already, like still now. And I joined the international department, the international relations department. And I've started to work with them like as an intern. And I was drafting some briefings, let's say, on possible projects, ideas. I mean, obviously at the beginning, I was not that knowledgeable about what was writing a project, writing a proposal, or whatever. Let's say that the luck was to have someone that was actually helping me in understanding how to develop better, let's say, an idea and a concept node. So all these technical basic things that now, of course, after some years became a bit more easier, let's say, for me. After these 6 months with QUM, I joined SOAS for a master degree in development studies. But since before I was studying in like translation and interpreting, I didn't have that strong political science background. That's the reason why I decided to join a general development studies master. So I was not that, specific on certain topics. But at the end of the day, I decided to pick some specific courses on global health and issues in forced migration that are still the two topics I'm very interested in, and I'm trying to work a lot joining these two components of the development field. After my master degree, I have to say that also during the master degree, I tried to study a lot what I was very interested in terms of regional area, and I was very interested in Latin America. Therefore, I was engaged a lot with some societies at SOAS, but also with other universities, with some movements, and also was writing a lot of essays on Latin America struggles. But at the end of the day, deciding to write my dissertation on public health, global health issue, which was on non-communicable diseases such as diabetes, hypertension, cervical cancer, I ended up focusing a lot of my attentions on, let's say, academic papers on Africa. And this is possibly the reason why, although I was very interested in joining and in living and experiencing again a possibility of internship in Latin America, I ended up joining a QUM in Sierra Leone. This was because, first of all, I applied for other internship in Latin America, and it was very difficult and very hard to get an internship there. And this is the reason why, at the end of the day, I decided to get this opportunity. They actually asked me, what do you think about going to Sierra Leone and working as trying an experience as external relations officer? And I said yes, and this is how everything started. So I went to Freetown and then to the deep south of Sierra Leone, which is a district called Pujeun. And I started to work as an external relation officer, which means basically supporting the country manager and the head office in his or her relationship and liaisons with the government, with external partners, donors, and a lot of other stakeholders that could be interesting to develop some activities with. This was a very peculiar moment for the country because we were ending the Ebola crisis. So the last Ebola case, actually the last 3 Ebola cases were recorded in January 2016, the month I arrived in Sierra Leone. So that the epidemics was declared over in March 2016. And that was so the post-recovery phase, which is something very, very intense in terms of restructuring the health system. So this moment was also very helpful for me and for the entire organization to understand how to structure development activities within a humanitarian context, a post-humanitarian context. So, I mean, I was 24 years old, so it was a very big challenge as well to start joining an organization in a difficult context such as Sierra Leone at that time. But it was very interesting, and also because we have started to develop strong relationships with stakeholders like the Liverpool School, as Joe was mentioning, with the maternal health and the reproductive health departments, because Sierra Leone is also the country where you have the highest maternal mortality rate in the world, sorry. That's the reason why, I've started to learn how to adapt a strategy of an organization within the actual context and reality of a country. And this comes from negotiations and a lot of listening to the government and the stakeholders, especially when it comes to talking to the communities. So one of the tips I could give you once you actually enter the development world is to start from, I don't know anything, I just need to listen to people and to understand, especially when you go to another context, which is completely different compared to yours. So then after 6 months, I was promoted as country manager, and I led the organization for 2 years-ish, where I had the chance to, again, develop stronger ties with different stakeholders, which actually led us like developing an innovative initiative on management and ambulance service in sub-Saharan Africa. And all of this, obviously, I mean, I was not aware on how to design this, but what actually worked for me was to create and work with a team of colleagues that then we have kind of called ourselves as a country management team. So with key people that were identified by the organization as knowledgeable on some specific topics, and working together and having, you know, like this participatory approach helped us develop a strategy for the country. So based on this experience, we gained this very big initiative financed by the World Bank and implemented jointly with the Ministry of Health of Sierra Leone. And then that was the moment where I said, okay, I guess that those first 2.5 years were super nice, super intense. It's time to start and learn something more, something new. And this is the reason why I decided to join the Mozambican team, where I am now, so in 2018. And the main reason why I wanted to join and to start knowing a Portuguese colonized country was actually to understand which was the biggest differences that you could actually see from the different colonization types. Yes, so this was actually the main reason why I wanted to join and to join QUM in another country. And obviously this was based on the SOAS experience I had, on the study we have been doing and pushing towards kind of understanding the realities of the different types of approaches of colonial times. And it took me at least 2 years to start understanding this new context, but at the same time, what I really enjoyed of joining Mozambique is that this was the moment where I actually understood what being a country that became independent in 1975 means, meaning like being cut and divided and all of this meant a lot especially for someone that comes from a country that is independent since at least 150 years. So, you know, like trying to understand and to relativize yourself was pretty intense. At the same time, this is, I'm not that good at giving tips, also possibly because I'm young professional still. But what I can tell you is that, like, from my experience, especially in Mozambique now, where I actually found myself in having to lead an organization facing the response to 2 cyclones last year, Cyclone Idai and Cyclone Kenneth, which hit the country in 2019, was that you need to study and to keep studying while working, trying to be always updated on how to manage, how to react, which is the main reason why I'm still trying to keep myself updating with online courses on the specific topics I'm interested in. So, for instance, health and migration, like especially for the situation we are facing again in Mozambique with the internally displaced people in Cabo Delgado province. This is one of the reasons why we are trying to cope with the situation, and this means that the leader of the organization needs to actually have basically background on what health and migration means, and at the same time how to work with disaster health. So this is the reason why I then decided to specialize myself in the health sector, although I'm not health clinician or by studying, let's say. But basically, this was my experience, and yes, still in Mozambique, trying to see how to go about. Let's say that the main curiosity I had was to actually see what working within the development field means by joining an organization working in the field. So this was the first real reason why I started to work with QMUL. And I guess this is it. And in case there is any question, I'm here.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Joanna. It's really good to hear how you sort of grabbed opportunities that came your way, and then you ended up where you are now, although you're still, as you say, a young professional, but you still have a lot of responsibilities, which is really, really inspirational. We have one last speaker, which is Praise, who is joining us, I think, from Nigeria, unless she's in the UK. And
No.
You are, okay. So Praise interned with us this summer, and we were really happy to have her intern with us. And she did it while she was studying at LCHTM and RVC in a One Health master's degree. So we invited Praise here today to talk a bit about her career path, and also maybe like some commercial for the LIDC internship, if possible. Because, yeah, we do take applications for from student members. So over to you, Praise.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I hope you can see my screen. Yep. Okay, fine. Can you all hear me and can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Okay, yeah, so this afternoon, just like Gon has said, I'm going to be talking about my career path. I'll say a few things about my internship experience, and I have just one tip. Yes, so I would say the whole thing started in 2018 when I graduated from the Federal University of Agriculture, Abeokuta, Nigeria, after my Doctor of Veterinary Medicine degree. And then in the same year, I moved to Dr. Ameyo Stella Adadebo Health Trust in 2018 as a graduate intern. And so DRASA Health Trust is a non-governmental public health organization which was set up in memory of the doctor who lost their life, you know, in the process of trying to curb the spread of Ebola in Nigeria. And in the same year, I got promoted to become the program associate. And in 2019, I kind of left because I had to move to the UK for my master's degree. So I graduated this year from the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine and the Royal Veterinary College from the Master of Science in One Health program. After which I interned at the LIDC as a communications intern, which I'm going to talk about later. And at the moment, I currently work with the Lagos State Ministry of Health as a consultant on grants management. And now it's so beautiful to see and also hear all the speakers and all the other panelists that have said that, you know, there's really no hard and fast rule, or there's no rule of thumb that gets you into international development space. I'm seeing lots of messages. Okay. Yeah, so I mean, I've heard Anna, Giovanna, Joe, and all the other panelists. I've heard them say that there's really no, you know, this is the way you get into international development. And who knows, maybe that's going to be my story, because right now what I do for the Lagos State Ministry of Health is I consult, you know, when it comes to all the foreign aids and all the money and whatever it is, they get donations they get from international donors and funders for health projects in the state. And it's been very interesting doing that. I'm not going to actually lie. It's been a learning process, but very valuable skill. So for the LIDC internship, I would say that information is key. And that was actually how I got to know about the internship. Of course, all students, you know, who are students at the member institutions of the LIDC are eligible to apply. And I think for me, it was this session that we had with someone who had interned at the LIDC, who was also a grad from Roy Veterinary College. I think she did the same course, and she had worked on some projects in one of the thematic areas at LIDC. So she had come to talk to us, and it was an opportunity to also talk about the internship. So that was how I got to know about it. So the next thing was, okay, fine, I was interested in the internship. So I don't know if the process has changed, but then I had to fill a membership form and all of that. And then the next thing was to submit my expression of interest, which you can actually call a cover letter, and my CV. And after that, I got called for an interview. And after that, so I think one thing that really helped me for my preparation for the interview was that I asked lots of questions. So between the time frame between when I knew I had been shortlisted for the interview and when I actually had the interview, I went on LinkedIn, and then I just searched for people who had interned at the LIDC, and then I engaged with them, and then I asked them questions. What's the internship really about? What kind of questions to be asked during the interview and all of that? And of course, I moved on to the internship proper. So it's very funny is that I actually got the internship probably in November of 2019, but I actually didn't intern until July ending of 2020. And so this is just an extra from my expression of interest, which is also letter of motivation. And I'm sharing this because I had to highlight some things for us, just to corroborate what has been said by the other speakers, that there is really no hard and fast rule into getting into international development space. One of the things I wanted to get from the internship was to hone specific skills in research, communications, and partnerships, because I believe those three are very important when we're talking about international development, especially if you want to drive conversations around international development in its many forms. And I also emphasized on why I actually wanted to get in, being that I wanted to learn how to network effectively with people across sectors and communicate evidence and research and all of that. And I think another thing that really got me into the internship, was that I'd done some social media engagement. I had handled some projects in the past when I was working at Dr. Ameyo Stella Adadebo Health Trust. And yes, this is going to be maybe a tip, I don't know. But when I completed my internship at the LIDC, I had to put this post out there on LinkedIn. And it was just me trying to tell people that you need to apply yourself to whatever you find yourself doing. So I asked the question, have you been given a task at work that you think isn't technically suited for your skills, which was what happened to me. And I was just advising that you should keep at it, you should apply yourself to it, and that skill might open the door for your next job. And that was exactly what happened to me. So when I was working at Dr. Ameyo Stella Adadebo Health Trust, I did a whole lot of social media engagement. We were doing lots of projects and all of that, public health projects, of course, but I did a whole lot of social media engagement. So just imagine if I had felt that this was a bit beneath me, or it's not suited to my technical expertise, I would have lost the opportunity of honing skills which were actually valuable when I got into LIDC for the internship. Okay, and that was just what I wanted to share with this. And for the internship, I can remember making me do this. What stood out for me during the internship was the support of the staff, which was very vital, as working from home in this unprecedented time can be demanding. And yes, I worked during the lockdown. I worked from home. The team was so supportive. Many thanks to Shireen and Gon for helping. And I also had an intern at that time. There was also an intern. His name was Dylan, I guess. Yeah. And so it was just a beautiful opportunity, to be fair. And this is my conclusion, just one, and it's a tip. No skill is wasted. I need to emphasize that. So you want to get into United Nations, you want to start working, at the World Bank or any of the multinational or supranational organizations, and you feel okay, yes, you're smart, you've gone to one of the best schools, and you think, oh, it should be a walk in the park, you should just get in. It doesn't necessarily work that way all the time. It might just be good for you to apply yourself to whatever skill. I mean, just look at me right now. I'm working with the government at the Ministry of Health. I'm working as a consultant in grant management, which isn't exactly international development. But if you look at it, I believe that whatever skill I'm going to get, you know, working as a consultant on lots of foreign aid projects and lots of international funded projects would be very valuable, you know, for the next level of my career. So thank you very much. And that's it.
Fantastic,
Yeah, so now
Grace.
I'm gonna end my yeah. Okay.
All right. Thank you so much, Praise. That was really, really great. I'm really glad to hear about your journey and also your conclusion. No skill is wasted. This is absolutely true. So I can see you will get some LinkedIn requests in the chat, so you can look forward to that. And we are about to start the Q&A part of this event, but I wanted to ask Becky first to maybe unmute herself and say hello if you can hear me. Becky is, oh, there she is.
Yes, I work at Queen Mary in the careers team, so I organise all our events programme and can tell you anything about what careers services can offer and all your appointments and application checks and practice interviews and anything along those lines. Did you want any more than that at this stage again?
No, that's great. Super. I think your microphone's a bit off, but I think we can hear you more or less. So if you have a question, you can raise your hand using this raise hand button that you'll find in the menu on the right-hand side. But I also have some questions that people have sent me beforehand and also that came up in the chat already. So I think I will start with the first question. I'm not sure exactly who it's for, so it could be for either of you. And it is from Obina. And the question is, in terms of employability, how big a role does it play to graduate from a certain school? Maybe Anna, you want to answer that?
I could certainly from my own perspective, because I went to University of Warsaw, Poland. Probably most of you haven't heard about it. It's one of the best universities in the country. However, it's probably in world rankings is towards the bottom of the first 500. It didn't stop me getting a job at the World Bank and then moving on to other places. So I think, you know, don't worry about it. Obviously, you know, it's great if you to have good education, but it doesn't have to be at undergraduate level. And I feel that school really is what you make of it, you know, how you apply yourself to the learning, how independent you are. You know, you could go to the best university in the world, and if it doesn't interest you or if you're not prepared to work hard, it's not going to get you far. So I would say don't worry about it too much.
Okay, great. Thank you, Annie. Anna, did anyone else want to add anything to that? Maybe you disagree or agree or have anything else you want to say on that? If not, I think we'll move on to the next question, which I think is probably for Joe. What do you think about doing a part-time master's alongside employment in, for instance, a graduate scheme? So Joe, you have a lot of experience with multitasking with work and education. So maybe you can share your thoughts on that.
Yeah, no, thanks. It's an interesting question. I think part-time education is great, personally. I think Marianne was saying that, you know, when you, well, at least from definitely in my case, because I only did start to do my undergraduate when I was 22, and I did my master's, you know, closer to 30. You bring a lot more to these experiences when you've had some other experience in your life, in, you know, out in the job world, and so I think part-time's great because it allows you to stretch it over a longer period. You can incorporate stuff you're doing in your work at the same time. Obviously, it takes its toll on your personal life, which I think it would have been the last point I should have added, is like, look after yourself in the process, because, you know, don't take on too much, because it can come at a toll. But I do think I'd say part-time is a great way forward. Yeah. And also the other good thing I've heard from a lot of friends and colleagues who've done part-time is that if you stretch over a couple of years, you get twice the cohort of students to mix it up with. And actually, most of the learning, or at least half of the learning you do in your degree, is from your peers. So you get a lot of value out of that, I think, from being, you know, having a bigger network. It's my 2 pence worth anyway.
Right, excellent. That's a very good point. Anna, do you want to add to that?
So I've just typed in the chat saying I agree with Joe already. So I did my master's full time while working 3 days a week, and it was exhausting. So I think spreading it over 2 years would have been better, but it really is what works for you. It may be that you just want to focus entirely on your master's and you know, spend as much time as possible at the library and then move on. It depends how you function, whether you are, you know, a natural multitasker. One thing I have to say is that I did not make the most out of my time at LSE. I was doing the mandatory reading, not the optional, because the job had to take priority. So it's a trade-off.
Sure. Great. So if you have any questions, you can raise your hands, and then we will get you in the order you appear. Still have a couple more questions. Let me see. So maybe we can ask Marion. It's just a little bit general what your advice is for people who are starting their careers in international development. You mentioned you tried, you were searching for a few months between your various roles. Maybe you can talk a little bit about where you looked for a job.
I literally took on all the opportunities I could. I was literally spending hours and hours each day on job portals like Indeed and like other local ones here in Pakistan. Then I was even looking at the organizations I wanted to work for. I would go to their contact us sort of section, look at the email address, put in my CV, draft an email, even send that sort of email to them as well, that this is what I've done, this is my CV, so if there's an opportunity, I'll be interested. So this is the first opportunity of the internship that I actually got was through that. So people actually do reply. Use LinkedIn as well. So if you're not sure exactly of the field, I would just say that try everywhere, try whatever comes your way, try knocking every door, and just draft like nice short email, a message, and just drop in, and it doesn't hurt, like, and you'll be surprised how many people actually reply back, and you can get great opportunities that way. So yeah, that's how I did it, at least.
Mm-hmm. Great. Praise, maybe you can talk a little bit about how you got the opportunity with the ministry. How did you find that?
Oh, yes. I think that social media is definitely a great tool. And most times, especially, I mean, this is 2020, so many people drop different opportunities in social media. And that was how I found this. So someone in government, someone at the Ministry of Health had put it on Twitter that they were looking for, you know, someone with XYZ skills who had done XYZ kind of project. And that was it. I just submitted my CV and then I got called for an interview and I got the job. Yeah, so it was more like a social media kind of thing. Yeah. So, I mean, that's to just underscore that any platform can be a very good platform to get a job. Being able to network, being able to socialize. I mean, any door can get opened. Yep.
Questions from Normi?
Hi, thank you guys for this webinar. It's been really great. My question is for any panelist, I guess, with COVID-19 being, you know, an uncertain time for everyone, how are you finding the job search in these international organizations where field work is probably on pause right now? Do you feel like there are these opportunities? We should maybe be looking at more domestic opportunities. Just any thoughts on how COVID has played an impact on job search?
Okay, anyone wants to volunteer to answer that?
Hi, I'm just going to step in here because Gun's sound has got the underwater effect, unfortunately. But she just said if any of our panel would like to step in and answer this point about opportunities during the current pandemic, we'd be very grateful. Thank you.
So I can say, oh, so go ahead, Mariam.
Oh, sorry. So I can talk from my experience. Yes, it has kind of impacted, but there's still local opportunities available, like from the UNDP perspective. We're still recruiting kind of jobs, like a lot of modalities might have changed, but there are a lot of fields that are, and with the international development, yes, the research or the on-ground sort of work is halted, but there's a lot more that goes as well. There's one of the panelists said earlier that there's comms, there's admin, there's finance, there's a lot of other fields within the international development area that you can still be looking and applying for.
Okay, can you hear me okay now, or is this still the same problem? It's good.
That's wonderful. Great to have you back. I'll mute myself now.
Thank you. Does anyone else want to add to that?
I can just add from Brooke's experience as a global NGO. So we're in very uncertain times, and we're worried about our income, which comes from individual supporters, from trusts and foundations, and obviously the whole economy will impact that. So we have currently put all new recruitment on hold, but that's temporary. And I'm guessing several other organizations, lots of others would do the same, but it will end when the lockdown eases. And still people leave all the time, people change jobs. So there are still opportunities out there, definitely in the NGO sector, even though things have temporarily slowed down.
Yeah. Giovanna, do you have any thoughts on this question?
Well, what I can say is that, like, one of the issues that the majority of NGOs here in Mozambique are facing are more related to the country itself, since there is no availability of visa at the moment. So there is no possibility of entering the country. This is the reason why, like, we are trying to reframe the work as a development aid worker in COVID time. So we are, let's say, working a lot, obviously, with our national colleagues, but at the same time, we are reframing our way of working. So I wouldn't say it's that much harder. Possibly it's hard to think of joining an organization and going in the field because there is no visa, like really like one of the biggest issue. But like joining the organization as external consultant, I know that UNICEF at the moment is hiring mainly consultants because of COVID, of course. I don't think that's the main concern. I guess that the issue of joining a big organization, an international organization, goes beyond the COVID at the moment. I wouldn't say that it's just COVID. COVID could be a difficulties in joining the field, not necessarily the organization itself. Although obviously, as Anna was saying, the issue of funds availability, of donors, foundations. I mean, the crisis is going all over the world, and we are not like exempt from this.
Yeah, very true. We have another question, and it's from Elora. Do you want to unmute yourself, Elora?
Hi. Hello. I just wanted to ask, I have a background that's coming out of not the development space, so coming more out of a corporate background. Do you have any advice for people who are stepping into the development sphere, looking for a new position, new career change, that don't have, let's say, previously development background or work? Who are coming out of a different career?
Yeah. Does anyone want to take that?
I guess I've got a question back for you, Laura. What when you say like development, you want to get into it, what kind of, have you got an idea of what that would be? Because I think like international development is such a huge, there's so many jobs in there, aren't there? I can think of loads of jobs that just in my part of it that you would be really well suited for. Like, for instance, there's a huge push now in like, malnutrition and food systems for researchers to engage with the private sector and because the private sector is basically runs the food system, and so people with a knowledge of how the corporate world works, governance and all that are really valuable, because a lot of people in research haven't had that experience in the corporate world. So just in that respect, I don't know what kind of work you hope, or are you looking more like humanitarian kind of work?
So my background is in change management, so with communications, training, dealing with people going through tricky times in the corporate world, and changes. And so in my experience of what I've done in terms of looking for a job and recruitment so far is always a little bit, I see that there's a mutual benefit to be had, I guess, from both sides, connecting and bridging the gap. But what I hear a lot is that kind of, if you don't have experience in the development space, then you don't even get your foot in the door to even have a conversation. And maybe vice versa in the corporate world, I can't really say so much from that side. So I'm looking in that direction, but I just kind of wonder I don't know, if there's anything that you would say that would make you stand out to say, okay, well, I'm coming from a different space, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think actually what you've just said, I mean, I suppose it depends like where you're applying. Because I work in academia and research, as I say, like you could probably find research or area of research that is relevant to what you're doing. Or, for instance, you talk about change management, or when managing sort of situations that are challenging. There's a whole big push in the development sector now on safeguarding, and that's a huge issue after what the Oxfam and what's been going on in the UN in various countries. So like, I think if you've managed difficult, challenging situations before, that would be a valuable asset. I'll let the other panelists to sort of comment more.
I think yes, you kind of need, for the most part, you do need that sort of experience. It's difficult to get your foot in the door. But it's not impossible, because it is kind of transferable skills, comms and trainings and all that is very much part of the development sector. You probably just need the right connections at this point, just to be able to show the person that this is something that you can bring to the table. Again, I don't know from like in other countries, but in Pakistan, getting jobs through connections is a very it's pretty much how it's done here. So if you end up making good connections, or like I said earlier, utilize LinkedIn or like professional platforms of that sort to perhaps kind of voice that, how you're relevant. So good luck with that. I think it can work out. It might take a bit of time, but it's certainly doable.
Thanks very much.
Okay, thank you so much. We're about to run out of time, but I think we can still take a couple more questions. And I know Ollie wants to ask a question. He's had some problems raising his hand. Ollie, do you want to unmute yourself?
Yeah, thank you. Firstly, I'd just like to thank all of you. The information all the panelists have given has been just so good, and really appreciate the insight. My question actually was for Mariam in particular. I'm Pakistani as well. I've worked in an NGO over there by the name of the Dawood Foundation. And so I just wanted to refer back to Joe's point when he said the advantage of being a white male. Because I feel nowadays, like I said, the playing field is trying to get a little more level. And this is not to discredit the merit, but I found that a lot of women, I've known like the CEO of the NGO I was working with is a woman, And so I just wanted to ask Mariam, in terms of you being a woman, do you feel like that played, and like I said, this is not to discredit your merit, do you feel like it was an advantage, or did it bring more challenges for you?
So I agree, but you have to realize, like, for the most part, women are still underrepresented. Even in our system, it's not equal by any chance. So there's always a need for the organizations to at least strive for equality of sorts. So for my position, I feel, yes, it kind of played a role into that, because I am part of youth empowerment program. They kind of wanted a young person. They kind of wanted to have a gender balance within the team as well. So their best bet was a woman or like someone from the minority group. And I just happened to be in that mix. Again, like Joe said, luck plays a role. Yes, white male, but sometimes being a woman it can go always, like luck can favor you in any way. Having said that, but majority of the work is dominated by men. We are underrepresented. So there's no rule of thumb in that regard as to who would be preferred. It's just being at the right place at the right time, I feel.
Thank you. We have a question from Hannah. Hannah, do you want to unmute yourself?
Yes, sure. Thank you so much. So my question is for any of the panelists, really, and I wanted to ask about program management. And I see a lot of times on the jobs that I'm applying for that they want kind of experience, especially in monitoring and evaluation. And I'm wondering if any of you has advice how to get that, besides from obviously getting a job. So because I feel like they're asking that of an entry level, for an entry level position. So I was just wondering if there's any way you can get that kind of remotely, or if you know of any transferable skills that I could be working on.
Monitoring and evaluation. Does anyone want to take that one?
So this is not my direct area of expertise, but obviously in all the organizations I worked for, there were monitoring and evaluation experts, and all of them learned on the job. Mm-hmm. It is something that you can learn. It's not really expected that you have done a degree or a course in it, but it doesn't hurt to do a course. And I know LIDC does one, don't you?
Yes, yeah, we had one early November for 2 weeks, where there was a mix of people who already worked in evaluation and people who wanted to break into that. And I know the same question came up. How do I get experience in evaluation when I don't have experience?
One thing that I could perhaps also suggest to you is take a look at the BOND website, BOND. It's an organization for UK-based international development NGOs, and they do a lot of short courses, including impact evaluation, that are quite good value for money. So if that's something specifically you're interested in, take a look at BOND.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
I'll just say one other thing as well about Hannah, about, I don't know, your particular situation, but as Anna was saying, I came into project management through an entry-level admin experience, and once you've got your foot in the door in one of those jobs, you can just basically hunt around and gain that experience while you're on the job. I usually just went and sort of asked colleagues, can I, what you're working on? Can I get a piece of that kind of thing? Because then you can quickly build out your CV. And the other thing I'll say is that, and this is not like a sort of, I'm not saying this to sort of fudge your applications or CVs or anything, but I think we can all tell a story with what we've got on our CVs sometimes, and like monitoring and evaluation can mean different things in different contexts, can't it? And like, monitoring can be like monitoring a budget and analyzing, forecasting over time and analyzing it. And you can kind of dress that up a bit more, for the audience you're writing to. Yeah, it might not be monitoring evaluation like a program over a 5-year period and producing like an impact statement. But definitely, I often think that we tend to undersell ourselves and don't perhaps extract as much value from our CVs or what you've done as is possible. And I think most employers, or at least I've been involved in quite a lot of recruitment over the last few years, and I rarely see anyone who has all of the criteria they need for a job. And almost everyone has to grow into a role. And I think employers accept that. And if you're a willing and affable person, and if you can demonstrate that you've got that drive, then a lot of employers will see that and take you on anyway.
Cool. Thank you so much, Joe and Anna.
Okay, perfect. I think I can see you still have some questions, but unfortunately we've really run out of time, which is unfortunate because it's really good to hear your questions and to interact with you. Some of your question might be answered by watching the recording of our previous career session, which should be on our website. It was in June, so you can find it there. There was also some talk about online volunteering, which is something you can actually do during COVID. And then, I'm sure everyone agrees with me to say thank you so much to all the speakers. You've been absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much for taking the time to share your experiences. And one last tip from me, to get a foot in the door in development, you might want to apply for Anna's job in communication, which the deadline is tomorrow. Is that right, Anna? Yes, tomorrow. Okay, so big applause for the speakers, for the panelists, and I hope to see you at some of our upcoming events. For instance, the one on the 4th of December, which is about decolonizing gynecology. So you can find out more out about that on our website. So thank you so much and hope to see you soon.